You're listening to the Good Old Boys Fantasy Football Podcast. Now here's your hosts, Kevin, Derek, and Alex.
Alrighty, welcome in, ladies and gentlemen, to another episode of the Good Old Boys Fantasy Football Podcast. I am Derek, and I am joined, as always, by your co-host, Kevin. Kevin, we missed you on the Friday. We got you back here on Tuesday. How was the weekend?
The weekend was good. Had our company Christmas party, so it was a lot of fun. But unfortunately, I had to miss the show. But I'm back, and it is all about the playoffs, baby. Playoffs. So hopefully, y'all are in, and you're playing for cash and trophies. If not, if your league has a consolation bracket, finish your season out, please. Like, that's my PSA. Don't just give up and scrap it off. Finish the season, fill out your roster, and don't be that guy who throws your sucker in the dirt and pouts on the way home. You can't win every league. I am not in the playoffs in every league that I'm in. I am in most, but I am not in all of them. I missed out on my work league. That just killed me. I had too many injuries all season long, and it went down. I could not make up the injuries of Hollywood Brown and Dallas Goedert, and then Lamar Jackson there at the very end, and Debo having a craptastic season. Like, I couldn't overcome it. But guess what? There's a consolation bracket, so I got to finish playing, as much as it pains me. But now I get to see what would have been.
Yeah, and some of those ones, right? Like, there are certainly a lot of those leagues where you've got something to play for in the consolation bracket, right? Like, you have draft position going through there. I know some of them do it where the lottery's based on how you finish in the consolation bracket, or overall draft seeding is for like rookie draft or next season and redraft league. So certainly something to play for there. And not only that, like, there's a lot of leagues out there that I sit there and I see rules and things like that where they put them in place where if you're eliminated from playoff contention, you can't pick up anybody off the waiver wire or anything like that. Like, if you're in those types of leagues, like, there's other leagues and greener pastures out there for you. But this is the time of year, right? Like, if you're able to really pay attention through this part of the season, even if you're eliminated on those leagues, you will be better served come the redraft and come draft season next year, because you'll find some hidden gems. This is the time of year that you saw Amon-Ra break out last year, like really truly break out last year, and became a lot of, you and I were very high on Amon-Ra last year, and especially going into draft season, but it was a guy that largely went underdrafted this year because a lot of people didn't pay attention to the last, 3 to 4 weeks of the actual regular season there to actually see what was going on. So that's that's some of the benefit there too. Even if you're not, really competing for a title or competing for the cash, you can still be competing and getting a leg up on the competition for next year going into draft season, really seeing how this last quarter of the season plays out in the playoffs there. So that's kind of my PSA in there as well. Bill with the comment saying, season's greetings. Welcome into the chat again, Bill. Always a good time seeing you there. Terrence had a question for us. Geno Smith, Tom Brady, Watson, or Mike White this week. Man, you've got a lot of quarterbacks. And Terrence, I'm assuming this is a 1 QB league. But we'll answer it regardless. So rank them 1, 2, 3, 4 between those 4 QBs.
I think I'm going Geno 1, Watson 2, Brady 3, Mike White 4. Is how I think I'm seeing that. There is no more ground game in Seattle, y'all. Like, all their running backs are busted up, and the Niners are too good against the ground this week. They're going to have to air it out. So I like the fact that he's going to have to put a lot of pressure on Lockett and DK, and I think Geno can be successful with doing that. But yeah, Mike White's a great story, but it's playoff time, and I ain't messing with that.
Right. Yeah, it's Geno Brady. Actually, Mike White, I'm going to put slightly ahead of Deshaun Watson, just from the standpoint he's playing Detroit. We just saw Kirk Cousins blow up for 400 on him. And Detroit has been very forgiving against the against opposing offenses. So that's how I'm going to rank. I'm going to go Geno, Tom, Mike White, Deshaun Watson on that one. And he's saying that it is a 1 QB league. So there you go. You've got it ranked all the way through for you. Bill asking, need to start one and drop one of these tight ends this week. Waller, Higbee, Hunter Henry, PPR format. Who do you got? I am not going to play a Darren Waller coming back off of missing that much time. Just not. I'm not going to do it.
Yeah, he was a disappointment before he went down, and I personally am not going to bank my playoffs on Darren Waller. I'm playing Hunter Henry. I think that's your start. Your drop, honestly, can be Tyler Higbee. Baker Mayfield does not use his tight ends. The only tight end Baker Mayfield's ever used, his name was Mark Andrews, and he played more of that hybrid role at Oklahoma when they were together, not necessarily traditional tight ends. So Higbee is out. Darren Waller, you can stash to wait and see how he looks, but I think your play this week is going to be Hunter Henry.
Certainly has the best matchup of anybody out there, right? Las Vegas, very favorable matchup for the tight end. And, overall, they give up the fourth most points to opposing fantasy offenses. So I do like the fact that Hunter Henry was involved. This is very much one where we don't know if what Devontae Parker is going to look like, right? He left the game early last night. You also got who's the guy? Jacoby Myers was also missed the game last night. He might be back. He might not. So you've got kind of the trio there between Thornton and Kendrick Bourne, and I'm forgetting one there, but regardless, Hunter Henry might be the best passing option in that offense. And if Ramondre Stevenson also misses, that's a guy that also picks up a lot of the passing work there that I would expect to go more towards the Hunter Henry route than the running back route there. So I like Hunter Henry, certainly the best of all of those guys there. Terrence asking Travis Etienne, Rashad White, Jamal Williams this week, PPR as their running back 2. Jamal Williams certainly got a lot of workload, but he's up against that tough matchup there. The Jets have been pretty good against the run this week. Etienne, super tough matchup against Dallas. Although Dallas has been allowing a little bit more so on the run side of things. Like we just saw Dameon Pierce kind of resurrect himself before getting injured in that game there. So I'm probably going to go with Etienne. Then White, then Jamal Williams, I think is how I would roll this one.
I'm going to go White first, then Etienne, then Jamal Williams. I think Williams, like you said, he's going to struggle against this Jets front seven. They've done a very good job stuffing the run, being very stingy to opposing running backs. So I think he's kind of the third man on that list. I won't necessarily fight anybody over Travis Etienne over Rashad White, but it seems like Etienne's been kind of on the downhill slide here the last couple weeks. White has been seeing more volume, and I think that them being Tampa Bay, being able to run the ball and control the clock a little bit at home is how they stay in this game against the Bengals offense, which is high flying here at the moment.
Right, they are certainly peaking at the right time. And with Jamal Williams, too, this is one of those that we could very well see more of a DeAndre Swift sighting in this one, using more of some screen games, use some more, short, quick passing type of deals there as an extension of the run game to get it out from the kind of that Jets front seven in that box there and really kind of, keep that pass rush at bay a little bit, let Jared Goff kind of settle and rock and roll in that one. So I think that's probably more of it as well. So differing opinion there. Kevin's leaning the Rashad White as your choice. I'm leaning the Travis Etienne. I think both are good options there. And you have certainly the reasoning behind that, and you can pick and decide which way you want to lean there. Terrence also asking, rostering 3 quarterbacks, should I drop Watson or Brazy for a skill position like J.K. Dobbins since Geno is my starter? Yes. You should absolutely drop one of those guys to go pick up J.K. Dobbins.
Yeah.
Especially in a 1 QB league.
Let's see here. So Deshaun Watson's remaining games, Baltimore, New Orleans, Washington, week 17. That one's a little bit tougher. And then Mr. Tom Brady, the GOAT. You're looking at Cincinnati, Arizona, Carolina. I think Brady's the keep here. I think Cincinnati's going to be a tough matchup this week, but we already said you're playing Geno, right? But after that, Arizona and Carolina have both been pretty leaky in pass defense, and I like those matchups a bit better for Tom Brady than I do Deshaun Watson's matchups.
Agreed. Yeah. And as that's kind of painful to say, just with what we've seen Brady do over the last few weeks here, kind of all season long. Certainly looks like a guy that's finally starting to kind of trend down as a quarterback. Like it looks like Father Time starting to catch up there a little
bit. And by all means, Terrence, if you feel differently and you really want to keep Watson, then drop Brady. You're okay to do that. So Watson's going to be able to use his legs a bit more, so you do get some bonus points that way. And you figure Deshaun Watson is going to continue to knock rust off and improve. So I am not opposed to keeping Watson. I just like the matchups for Brady a little bit more.
Right. Yeah, matchup. Yeah, agreed. Bill saying awesome, good deal. You're most welcome, Bill. Guys, if you have any questions, comments, concerns, anything like that, let's throw them in the chat here. Let's talk about those things. Let's get those things ready to rock and roll. So, Kevin, I know that we touched a little bit on some of the home league last week there, and I was fighting to try and get in, and I won the war of attrition. That's how I did it. I ended up playing almost an NFC South type of victory into the playoffs in the home league there. So I was pretty happy about that one. But I get another tough matchup here going into week one. But your team's certainly peaking at the right time, and you're almost kind of looking like the Bengals there a little bit here heading down into the stretch.
Yeah, the Stevenson injuries concerning a little bit, but I do feel like with some moves I've made, I have enough depth there to absorb that Stevenson injury without freaking out, right? Jalen Hurts and Justin Jefferson are anchoring my team.
Yes.
Week in and week out, right? Now, Kirk Cousins has been playing well enough that he's a great QB2. And then I have a lot of upside, right? Like I have
you have
James Conner, I have Amon-Ra St. Brown, Joe Mixon, right? Like as the Bengals continue, having a piece of that high profile offense and David Njoku, right? Like ride or die with David Njoku. And I've been fortunate to this point, and now it's time to try and put my money where my mouth is, because I think outside of your matchup at the 2-7, my 3-6 matchup is a lot. My 6 opponent is much more difficult than anybody else's lower ranked opponent this week, so it's going to be a tough one.
Yeah, I was looking at that, and certainly I'm going to give the old number 2 seed a run for their money. I feel like we can be very competitive here, but this is the third time I have to play this opponent, and I have come up short both of the last 2 times here. But yeah, I'm right now as it sits, I'm projected to be the 3rd highest scoring team in the playoffs for the first round, and projected to lose being the 3rd highest scoring team in the first round of the playoffs there. So that's always a lot of fun when you look at that going, man, oh man, oh man. And that would be my luck, is to go out there and be the 3rd or the 2nd highest scoring team for the week and manage to make a first round exit. That seems to be the case there. But anyway, I digress. Anything else you want to hit up on some of these things? Any other leagues you want to hit on here before we start rock and rolling into some waivers?
No, I don't know that we need to bore anybody. Definitely some interesting things on the waiver wire this week, as we can get into some of that here in the show. But overall, like I said, it's all about the playoffs. So let us know how we can help, and let's advance out of round 1. We got to take it 1 week at a time. You can't lift the trophy if you don't get out of the first round.
Right. And that's the other thing too, right? As kind of a PSA there, so to speak, when you're going into week 15 here, you're going into the first round of the playoffs. Do not, I see this happen so often where everybody is so concerned about their matchups in week 16 and week 17 and trying to make moves for the waiver wire and trying to make moves for this, that, and the other for what looks like the second or the championship round of their playoff deals. It matters, don't get me wrong, but it doesn't matter if you don't get there, right? If you don't win in week 15, it doesn't matter what you set up to get done in week 16 or 17 if you don't get there. So you got to take care of business in the first round here, and let's survive in advance there and keep that one rocking and rolling. Bill asking, do you guys think Ayuk can hit 14 PPR points Thursday night on the road? With Debo not playing, I think the chances go up, but with Brock Purdy throwing the ball, I'm not as optimistic on that one.
Purdy's been pretty efficient though, right? Like they're not letting him do a whole lot, but what he is doing has been efficient. And I agree with that. With Debo being out, I guess I expect 14 out of Ayuk, and anything less I would call a disappointment this week. You have your Christian McCaffrey, but it's a divisional game, and it's always some of these big plays. And Ayuk has done a good job being a, mid to deep play receiver for them. And I think that this offensive line's strong enough to give Purdy some time. And as long as his ribs don't give out on him or anything like that, I like Ayuk. I like him as a solid number 2 receiver.
Call your stat line on him.
6 for 55 and a touchdown.
Okay. I'm not quite as bullish as you are on the receptions. I'm right there kind of in the yardage for you, because I do think that he gets right about 60 yards. I'm closer to that 4, maybe 5 receptions on that one. And so that it really comes down to whether or not you think that he gets into the end zone. I think that, the odds are favorable that he gets in the end zone. So Bill, that's kind of where I would leave that one to you, is I think that if Ayuk gets into the end zone, I've got him at 16 points in a PPR. If he doesn't get in the end zone, he's at 10 points PPR. And that's kind of where I've got him there. Kevin sounds like he's kind of right in that same ballpark. Probably closer to the 18 if he gets into the end zone, 12 if he doesn't. So that touchdown is the kicker on that one. And so it comes down to whether or not you think that he is going to get in the end zone. Now, they're going up against the Seahawks, who have not been as great of a defense down the stretch here, and they certainly are having some issues there. But the Seahawks have been fairly good against not allowing many points against opposing wide receivers. They're the 4th or 5th fewest points given up at the position. They're giving up about 15% fewer points on the average there. So there is some of that, but Bill, it all comes down to whether or not you think he's going to fall into the end zone. And I think that's going to be the difference on what carries him over and gets him into a very good week for you, or he just has a ho-hum, 10 to 12 point week. Any other thoughts on that one?
No, I think that spells out exactly what I was thinking.
Cool. Alrighty, so Terrence asking, I can get Elijah Moore or Dobbins, starters Geno, Taylor, ETN, St. Brown, AJ Brown, Kelsey, Keenan Allen. The bench is Jamison Williams, Jamal Williams, Brady, Watson, Rashad White, Khalil Herbert on the IR, Goddard, Burks. I'm going to go with Dobbins, I think. I'd rather have additional RB depth than what you've got there. Because you think about it, right? If you have a startable running back there, you can flex Keenan Allen into that matchup, right? Because you've got 3 stud wide receivers there between St. Brown, AJ Brown, and Keenan Allen. You've already got the depth that you need there. So I'd go after Dobbins on this one.
I agree. I'd rather have Dobbins.
Cool. And Bill saying LFG. We'll just shorten that up for everybody. LFG right there. I love it. All righty. Well, Kevin, any other thoughts on any of those? Are we ready to hit some of the old waiver of the wire?
Let's hit the waiver wire.
All right. So waiver wire here, and it's week 15. And so one thing I will say out there as well is kind of another PSA, right? We already talked a little bit about the, looking and maybe playing some of that where you're looking a week ahead as far as your waiver wire. There's also some defense that you can play here as well. And you can be looking at some of your opponents. You can be looking at what that looks like and some of the projecting that you can look through there. And, it's never a bad idea to play keep away if you've got the depth that you can handle, storing a guy or two that your opponent might need from a positional need. Now, you can't take everybody out there just because you'll be releasing, better players back onto the waiver wire than you're getting. But you can certainly, potentially play some keep away. That's worth looking at there as well. So, Kevin, what are your thoughts here? What are some guys that you're heavily targeting here on the waiver wire?
Ooh, heavily targeted. I think one that I'm looking at for this week specifically is if you're looking for a tight end streamer, Trey McBride.
Yeah, I like that.
I like Trey McBride going up against the Broncos quite a bit. I know a lot of people are going to be kind of Damian Pierce owners, I think, are going to be gravitated towards Rick Burkhead. I would tell you it's Dari
Agumbawale.
Agumbawale, yes, sir. I think he is actually going to see a little bit more of this volume. Again, the Chiefs do give yards up, right? Like they will score points, but the Chiefs do give yards up. We saw the Broncos last week have success on the ground a little bit. Most of it came through the air, but on the ground they did have some success, and that was the best the Broncos have moved the ball all season long until Russell Wilson got hurt. So I do think that that's something to be on the lookout for. I think that if Darius Slayton is still sitting out there, you're looking at a Darius Slayton type move to add some wide receiver depth. Zay Jones is kind of the number 2 option right now behind Christian Kirk.
Where do you get DJ Chark in that mix?
You know what? I think I have Chark right there with. I think I have him third on this list because of the matchup this week, right? Like I do think that the Jets kind of dumb that down a little bit, but I think Chark might also have the highest ceiling. So if you need that home run play and, that flex position that can go off for, 6 for 85 and a touchdown or even, possibly more, I think Chark could lend that to you. But you also do run the risk of him having 2 catches for 23 yards, right? Like that is unfortunately one of those situations. Let's see. Outside of that,
here's a name that I keep seeing pop up here that I'm very intrigued about, and I'll get your thoughts here. Chuba Hubbard.
Okay, so here's. Chuba Hubbard's not a bad ad because he's seen 17 plus touches 3 out of the last 4 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
Now, over the last 4 weeks, the Carolina Panthers have run the ball 42 or 43 times per game.
They're the new Falcons.
Right? So as much as Deonta Foreman is the number 1 there, when you're running the ball 42, 43 times a game, you're bound to get touches. And that's where Chuba Hubbard's coming in. And at 17 touches, he's the number 2 back on that team, and he's seeing more volume than players like Ezekiel Elliott, Tony Pollard, Najee Harris most weeks, DeAndre Swift. So yes, we all kind of clown on Chuba Hubbard, but opportunity is your friend, especially if you're deprived of running back, and Chuba Hubbard does provide you with opportunity because I expect to see that continue. I think we'll see him with about 15 touches this week, and then you're just kind of hoping that 4, maybe 5 of those are catches so you can cheat those PPR points, and you're crossing your fingers that he maybe falls into the end zone.
Okay, I like it. That's kind of what I'm seeing there as well, and it's one of those that could be a sneaky ad that could absolutely give you a little bit of depth. Not only that, that's a guy that I think is absolutely worth, if nothing else, playing keep away from your opponent with. So yeah, this is one of those that when you go into some of these things, you like you said there, you don't want to allow somebody to, if they had the Ramondre Stevenson, if they had some of these other guys that just went down to injury or they're a little bit light there, and you've got somebody that like a Chuba that has seen so much volume Yeah, that I think is certainly worth playing to keep away on that one.
No, absolutely.
What other thoughts there do we have on this waiver wire? Because it does look a little bit slim pickings, but this is one of those two that I wanted to bring up the discussion here that, this time last year you saw guys like Amon Ra still heavily on the waiver wire. You saw guys like Rashad Penny, and Rashad Penny was a league winner for a lot of folks who from weeks 15 through 17 last year finishes the RB1 through those 3 weeks and won people leagues. Is there anybody out there that you can kind of maybe you see kind of coming, want to call the shot on some of these guys that potentially could have that kind of impact for your fantasy roster this year?
So I think we've already started to see it with Zonovan Knight. I do think that he's filling in very nicely, right? As ETN slips a little bit, as you're frustrated as a DeAndre Swift owner, as Damian Pierce goes down, as Kenneth Walker goes down, right? Like you have all these. Zonovan Knight's been able to pick up the slack for your fantasy roster quite nicely. And he did very well against the Buffalo Bills last week, right? And it was a costly Michael Carter fumble that really sealed that game away. So it leads one to believe that he's going to see even more touches. So I don't think that he's on many waiver wires much longer. If he is, go snatch him up. He is absolutely a piece that you would like to have. I think another guy is Donovan Peoples-Jones, right? Like he just continues to be relevant. And so there's another guy that you'd like to have. Well, there you go, Bill. But I think a lot of what this year is, Derek, I think it's guys coming back from injury.
Right. The Hollywood Brown type of.
The Hollywood Brown, Keenan Allen, Mike Williams, J.K. Dobbins, right? These guys that, possibly Dallas Goedert. He could come off of IR and play this week.
Right.
I don't know that that's going to happen. But if you had Goddard, you were really happy with what you were getting up until 4 weeks ago, right?
Right.
And so now, even if they activate him this week and play him next, you have your tight end one back.
Right.
So I think all of these things is more what I'm seeing this year. It's these guys who are coming back from mid-season injuries. They got placed on IR, and now they're that shot in the arm. Because if you're already in the playoffs and you did without those guys the last 4, 5, 6 weeks, now you get that extra jolt, right? Like that is bonus points essentially because you fought and clawed your way to the playoffs without them. Now you get to reap the benefits of having them healthy and back on your roster.
I love it. Yeah, that's the thing, right? Like I was really racking my brain trying to see who could potentially be that one, right? Like Rashad Penny was one of those that when we looked at it last year was almost kind of that easy thing, especially when you look back with hindsight 2020 and all that, was very much an easy call at that point. And that was one that I certainly made that move on many of my fantasy rosters going into the playoffs there with Rashad Penny and rode that to championships in multitudes of leagues. But this year I'm having a harder time trying to see, that potential breakout there. Damian Harris is another guy out there that is very much worth an ad. Pierre Strong certainly looked really good, in his relief of Ramondre Stevenson and Kevin Harris as he's out there. But Damian Harris very well could be back. And if Ramondre is banged up and out, Damian Harris should get a lot of workload going forward on that one. That was the guy to be looking at. And that's a guy that is kind of only rostered in about 52 to 53% of leagues. So if you're in one of those 47% of leagues that he's not in, that's a guy worth adding there as well. And if he misses there too, I want Pierre Strong. Like he looked good, had some pop, certainly had a lot of change of pace there. And I think he would fall more into that Ramondre Stevenson role where you might see, 4, 5 receptions a game. And he has the speed to break one off like we saw this last week here as well. But any other thoughts out there on the waiver wire potential must add guys there?
No, I think you touched on it, right? Like Pierre Strong is definitely one of those guys. I think that Mason. Is that who I'm thinking of?
Jordan Mason.
Jordan Mason.
That's another guy we didn't mention on, but that's a guy that you should be, if you can stash, I would stash. Just from the standpoint, if CMC goes down, Jordan Mason is the guy, I think.
Yes, and that's exactly what it is. It is handcuff season, y'all. And Jordan Mason right now is the Christian McCaffrey handcuff. I think Madison should be rostered.
Yep.
I tell you what, here's a name that we've been disappointed with all season long, and it kind of lost some momentum because they were on a bye week last week. But A.J. Dillon, the last 2 weeks before, so weeks 12 and 13, had really started to gain some momentum with the Packers.
Yep.
And it seems like if you were patient and kept hold of him, or even if someone else dropped him and you picked him up to stash him, it feels like this might be starting to pay off here down the stretch as they get further and further out of playoff reach. You know, it would be easy to see Aaron Jones and Aaron Rodgers kind of get shut down a little bit. And then you see A.J. Dillon and Jordan Love kind of take over as this quarterback running back combo in Green Bay. So Dillon's the guy that I think is at least worth keeping an eye out for if he's on your roster. And he's not on many free agent lists, but if you're in one of those 15% of leagues where he's still out there, pick him up. It's okay. Like bring him on board, because I think there's a potential that he could be the running back that helps pop here down the stretch for you.
Yeah, very much so. Bill saying, on behalf of the fan club here, I'd like to say thanks for all the hard work, most importantly, your time away from your lives to help us out each week. Merry Christmas, guys. Bill, appreciate those kind words, and you are most
Merry
welcome.
Christmas, sir.
Merry Christmas. That's all it's all about, is the cash and trophies and helping you guys try and win. So absolutely appreciate that. Terrence saying that he seconds that at Bill. Thank you. You guys are awesome. Real quick, we hit a little bit on this, but let's just answer the question directly. Can Donovan Peoples-Jones be the Amon-Ra St. Brown of this year's fantasy playoffs? What do you think? Yes, no?
I don't know to the extent that Amon-Ra St. Brown was last year, right? Like St. Brown went from a guy that you picked up had him on your bench to a true league-winning number one wide receiver. I think DPJ is a very solid number two wide receiver right now.
Right.
So not quite that same impactfulness, but depending on your roster construction, how nice would it be to be able to float out like let's say you have Devontae Adams, Chris Olave, and now DPJ. Like, you feel pretty good about that. Like, it may not be the best in the or here's one, because I've seen this combination a lot. It's the combination that I have in the home league. It's Justin Jefferson, St. Brown, and then DPJ.
Right.
Like, that's pretty scary, right? Like, obviously Jefferson and St. Brown kind of do their own thing, but now you have this massive upside with Donovan Peoples-Jones as Watson becomes more familiar with playing football again. Like,
right.
and that's what a lot of this is, and it's harder to gauge. It's 2 years removed from football. The first week he looked awful, absolutely awful. Last week, serviceable, right? Like, not great, but serviceable. Got the legs moving a little bit, kind of did what he could, got the touchdown, getting his timing down again, right? This week, does he take that next step again, right? Does he go from serviceable to solid, and then from solid back to superstar? And I'm not saying it's going to happen in week succession, but that's what you're hoping for, right? So as Watson improves, Peoples-Jones should improve too, because Watson likes that deep ball. We saw it with Will Fuller for years in Houston. When Fuller was healthy, Watson gave him every chance in the world to be a superstar, even with Nuke Hopkins on that team, because he realized that he needed the safeties back to be able to feed everything underneath. And I'm looking forward to this. Now that we're getting the cobwebs off, I'm looking forward to what Watson does, but I do think it spells good things for DPJ.
Right. And that's you brought up that point there that I was going to make as well, right? Like, if he can become that kind of, fantasy, playoff boom player for you, like we saw Amon-Ra do last year. It's going to become in a very different format than what we saw Amon-Ra do last year. Amon-Ra got there through volume, where he was seeing 11, 12 targets a game and just consistently getting fed the ball, making plays happen, and really just kind of going through that. And DPJ, if he does it, it's going to come on, 4, maybe 5 receptions where they were, 20, 30-yard shots down the field there and kind of march through it that way. So I don't think it's more boom bust for sure on that one. Which one had you giggling? We'll just go to that one.
It was Bill talking about he's doing the Vince McMahon walk around his garage right now, getting pumped for the play. Like, I grew up watching a lot of that, and I don't as much anymore, but I did grow up watching a lot of WWE now, and what was WWF, right? The Attitude Era. Stone Cold is my boy. Like, I will forever attach part of my childhood to the glass breaking, Stone Cold coming out and spraying beer all over Vince McMahon or flipping him off and stunning him. Like, it just, thank you, Bill. Like, that just, obviously it brought a smile to my face. It made me think of my youth and bring back some good memories. So I know exactly what you're doing, and I appreciate you for telling us that.
I do enjoy it as well. Terrence asking if he's able to get Dobbins off the waiver, would you start him over ETN or Rachaad White?
With as bad as the Browns have been against the run the last 5 weeks,
it's hard not to. Yeah,
like the Browns have been giving up 5.21 yards per carry here the last 5 weeks. Like, they are arguably worse than the Texans.
And that's bad.
With no Lamar Jackson, that doesn't necessarily phase the Ravens' run game, right? Huntley is a different type of quarterback, but he can move around too. You have to have a Mark Andrews sighting at some point, but that is what it is. But they feel good enough about Dobbins for 15, 120, and a touchdown his first week back. I think they run it back. I think you see another 15 to 17 carries for Dobbins. You may not get the 120, but I think you can get the touchdown again. And I do think that stat line outperforms Rachaad White and Travis Etienne.
Yep. The Browns allow the third most points to opposing fantasy running backs. So if you needed any more reason to do it, they allow a ton of points there.
Yeah.
Bill was asking Terrence if he's playing a higher seed in the playoffs. And yes, he is. He's the 4 seed. The opponent has Josh Allen, Diggs, Justin Jefferson, Henry, Elliott, Fournette, and Njoku. And that is that's a formidable lineup you're going up against.
Yeah, that's a doozy, sir.
Yeah. Bill saying that he has the Allen, Diggs, and Henry matchup too, and that's the head of the dragon. Good luck. Yes, Terrence, best of luck to you. And if you have any other questions, let's hit them up. Let's throw them out there. Let's get those things talked about and see what we can do to help you get everything set to go for the march towards cash and trophies. And while we're waiting for any questions, comments to come in, let's go ahead and we're going to hit up the old Pine and Shine recap. So we're going to start with the Pine, and we'll start with Alex, who called for Amari Cooper versus Cincinnati to be a Pine for you. That one certainly ended up hitting, where Amari had an awful game, was ranked wide receiver 19 going into that matchup, and I don't even think he cracked the top 50 last week. So good for you, Alex, on calling Amari Cooper. Kevin, what about yours?
I said Pine, Travis Etienne going up against the Tennessee Titans, and yeah, that was a stinker, right? Like, that was a stinker. That cost people, their shot at the playoffs, right? And one of the few things that is more frustrating than that was T. Higgins getting the goose egg.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Travis Etienne was in my starting lineup and certainly didn't do me any favors, so I certainly felt that pain alongside with you as well. So that was a hit for you. Rachaad White, was going up against a tough matchup. I said to pine him. He was running back 24 going into the last week. He finished running back 25. Technically that's a hit, but I'm going to call it a push and we'll just move along there. So let's go ahead and head over to the recaps for the Shine. And Alex called for Zeke Elliott versus the Texans to be a shine last week. He was, going into the week running back 13 consensus, finished as a top 10 running back. So that was a hit for Alex.
No, absolutely. I missed on mine. TJ Hawkinson. I thought that he'd have a bit better game going up against his old team. Um, the the Lions did a pretty good job stopping everyone except Justin Jefferson. Like Kirk Cousins had 400 yards, but when over half of that goes to one player, like they struggled with Jefferson, but they did a pretty good job. They kept Thielen in check. Yes, he had the touchdown, but he didn't go off by any stretch. Hawkinson was serviceable. He missed falling into the end zone, right? Like that's what we thought was going to happen. That's why he was, consensus ranked number 3 last week for tight ends. Like we really thought he was going to get in the end zone against his old team. It didn't happen, and because of that, they lost.
Yeah, and that was really the only thing that kept kept that one out for you was the fact that he didn't get in the end zone because he had a very good stat line there. Otherwise, 77 receiving yards. Just that touchdown kind of kept him down there, towards tight end 10 instead of tight end 3 on that one.
When Evan Ingram goes for 40, it makes it hard for TJ Hawkinson to get to tight end 3.
Well, yes, that's true. But actually, if you look at it, he finished at 8.7 points, right? A touchdown moves him to 14.7 points, which puts him at tight end 4, which we would have called a push then for you. So it was the touchdown. Touchdown literally kept him from not getting there. But my shine, I called for a quarterback to go out there and have a good game, and that he did. Jared Goff did a little bit of uncorking there against the Vikings. I thought the Vikings would end up pulling that thing out and winning that one, but Jared Goff uncorked for 330 yards, 3 touchdowns, was a quarterback 4 on the week, well up from his QB 11 as far as the expert consensus going in there. So that was a hit for me. That's going to move us to Alex being at 14-10. I moved to 17-7-4, and Kevin sitting at 15-11-2 on the season here. So we've got some good things rocking and rolling, and we've got a couple more weeks here as we head down through it. And I'm going to do everything I can to just try and outrun you here on this one. So
yeah, you got a decent enough lead right now. It's gonna be tough for me to get back in this.
I just got to not outkick my coverage and get cute. That's always my problem. I try and get too cute with things. Alrighty. Bill has a question coming in here. Playing on Saturday this week is an extra juggernaut sprinkled into the fantasy playoffs. Excited to see the Bills and the Dolphins. That should be a good matchup. And that is another thing out there as well, right? Like, you can tell you're in fantasy playoffs because you have the Thursday night game, but you also have 3 matchups on Saturday. So make sure that you get your roster set Friday night before you go to bed, things like that. This is going to be an outside of the norm there. And that I've seen that playoff matches week 1 be determined on those Saturday matchups where somebody forgot to set a lineup, forgot to get those players in there, and they had somebody go off on their bench that should have been in the starting lineup otherwise. So do not mess around and do not play around with that, especially with as many good players were on bye last week. So make sure that you're doing that. Thanks for pointing that out, Bill. Any other thoughts on that one?
No, I completely agree, right? Those 3 Saturday matchups are big time to pay attention to. And yes, this Thursday night game, while it has some fantasy implications for sure, right? And what's going on, this has even more implications in the NFL. Like, this is possibly going to decide the division title. Like, there are a lot of things at stake here, and it should be one of the more physical Thursday night games that we've seen this season, and probably one of the better, even though they're 2 West Coast teams that only California and Washington care about.
Right. You know what? Let's go ahead and we'll just head right over there and we'll talk about the Thursday night matchup. We got the Niners and the Seahawks squaring off here. The Niners favored by 3.5. The over-under on this one, 43.5. What are your thoughts on this one?
I've been kind of chewing on this for a little bit, and I think that no Debo and no Jimmy G and no Trey Lance, like, I think that this helps Seattle keep it close. So I think I'm going to take Seattle. I think it's the hook. I see a field goal game, so I'm going to take Seattle. And for Seattle to win, I think it has to hit the over. I don't think Seattle can win a low-scoring, grinded-out game. That is what San Francisco wants to do most. Seattle needs to be able to put points on the board to force Brock Purdy into throwing it around the yard. But by doing this leads back into what Bill was asking about Brandon Ayuk. Hence why I think Ayuk can get 14 PPR fantasy points this week.
He very well could be. That part of the reason I only see Ayuk really getting about 4 receptions in this one is we just saw the blueprint that the Panthers put up last week, in which you can beat Seattle by only having your quarterback throw like 120 yards. Like you can run you can seemingly establish the run here, and Kyle Shanahan known for figuring out a way to get the run game going there, and I think that we're going to see a heavy dose of old CMC on this one. Wouldn't surprise me that there's enough workload to go around where we actually see a sprinkling in of Jordan Mason anyway on this one, even with CMC fully getting a lot of workload here. And I think you're going to see CMC really just have a great game here. I think that this is going to be an under on this one. I do think that the Niners cover this thing. Would not surprise me. These two teams tend to grind it out anyway when they play each other, but I'm going to kind of take my shot and call for like a 21-17 game is how I think this one's going to come out. So any other thoughts on the old Thursday night game here?
Sorry, I was wetting my whistle.
I like it.
No, like I said, there are fantasy implications, right? Like you're starting Christian McCaffrey, you're starting Brandon Ayuk, Debo, Lockett. Keep an eye out. And here's the deal. I wouldn't play Kenneth Walker even if he gets cleared this week, guys.
Right.
Like as much as you want to put him in your lineup, and yes, he does pose some touchdown upside, you are thinking like flex play at best. So you need to temper expectations if Kenneth Walker gets cleared. And I would do everything humanly possible. If I have the depth to absorb it, I would not play Kenneth Walker this week.
Yeah, that's going to be a tough road there. The Niners are a tough run defense anyway.
Mm-hmm.
Much less the fact that you've got Kenneth Walker coming off of that foot/ankle injury. And missing a week. I want to see what he looks like, back a week before I'm going to trust him for my fantasy playoffs. And something else there is what, right? Like even if you were considering him as a flex play, you're still going to have to, for roster construct going into the weekend, you're still going to want to put him in there as your actual, positional running back. If you're going to try and play him as the flex, just because you want to allow yourself the flexibility for, should something pop up in the injury on practice on, Fridays, Saturdays, those types of things, somebody, gets sick, all of that kind of stuff. Like you want to provide that flexibility on that. So while you may be, playing him as your flex, you would have to actually start him in that running back position there. And I think you've got other options to go there as well. Kenneth Walker, I think his upside is maybe 10 fantasy points. And I think that's probably pushing it this week. So I'm not going there either. Alrighty. Yeah, I think that probably does that one. We'll go ahead and move over here to Terrence saying that, the team he's going up against has a nice lineup. He has Kelsey, St. Brown, AJ Brown, Jonathan Taylor, and Keenan Allen. It's going to be a great 2 weeks there. So it looks like Terrence is actually in a 2-week playoff battle there. Those can always be a little bit of fun there. And you see those things definitely kind of swing for the fences and, definitely see some of the better teams with the better depth ultimately move on when you have those 2-week matchups there. So any other thoughts on that one?
No, other than poor Terrence has to play a week 18 championship game.
Yes. Yeah. I'm sorry about that, Terrence. Maybe you'll find your own Matt Flynn if you get into that scenario there.
Brutal.
I just wish Alex was here for me to be able to keep bringing that up for him. But anyway, alrighty, let's go ahead and let's head into the week 15 Pine and the Shine. And the Pine and Shine is where we call our our guys that are going to blow up or guys that are going to have not so great weeks here. And we'll start with the Pine. Alex is calling for Raheem Mostert versus the Bills, saying that he has a rough couple of weeks and it continues against a stingy Buffalo run defense. Kevin, what about your Pine?
My Pine this week is going to be Josh Jacobs. Going up against the New England Patriots. I think that, Belichick's trying to stop your two best options, right? And clearly that's Josh Jacobs. and then it's Devontae Adams, right? Like, he's going to let Derek Carr do Derek Carr things, but they want to slow down Josh Jacobs and Devontae Adams. So I think Jacobs is going to struggle a little bit. He is not going to finish nearly as high as people want him to.
No, I could see that one. My pine is going to be Saquon Barkley. Yeah, he's a
Another guy who struggled.
Yeah, he's still ranked as a top 10 back going into this week. He is certainly on a downward trend, has not gone above 40 yards rushing in 3 of his last 4 matchups. He hasn't gone over 20 yards receiving in any of his last 4 matchups. Washington allows the 4th fewest points to opposing running backs this year. So I see Saquon having a rough game this year, and I would see him more as a flex play than even as my RB2 on where I'm looking to try and play that one. So
I appreciate that because I'm going up against him in our home league.
Well, there you go. I at 17-7, I'm doing all right. So hopefully,
the way you've been hitting them, I need you to hit this one.
All right, let's see what we can do there. All righty. That's always strange when you're rooting for me and things that we're competing against on that
right.
one. So, all righty. Let's go ahead and head on over to the Shine here. And the Shine are going to be guys that absolutely we're seeing having big things coming their way. And we'll start with Alex, who's calling for Michael Pittman versus the Vikings. The Vikings have the worst pass defense in the NFL, he says, and hopefully it's a very big game for Indy wideouts. What about your Shine?
Real quick, I like that Michael Pittman call a lot.
I do too.
The Vikings have given up over the last 3 weeks. They've given up an average of 352 passing yards a game. So I do like that. It's just a matter of if Matt Ryan can get enough time to continue to drive the ball to Pittman. So good job, Alex. I like that one.
Right.
My shine this week is going to be Isaiah Pacheco. I'm going to pick on the Houston defense here a little bit, but again, you're looking for these running backs to fill in, and you're dealing with all these injuries. Like Pacheco steps in, has played well, and now has this kind of sweetheart matchup for the first round of your playoffs going up against the Texans. So I like it a lot, and I think it wouldn't surprise me if he had 2 touchdowns, but I'm going to say he's going to have like 87 yards on the ground, another 23 through the air, and 1 touchdown.
Yeah, I really like that matchup he's got there as well. In fact, I almost went with Jeff McKinnon to kind of run it back this week going up against that Texans matchup, and decided I didn't want to necessarily tempt fate, but I wanted to call the shine on a different guy who actually hasn't played that great going down the last few weeks here. Chris Olave right now is kind of that RB 24. I'm sorry, wide receiver 24 this week as far as kind of the expert consensus has it ranked, but he has a very plus matchup against Atlanta. Atlanta has allowed the 3rd most fantasy points to opposing wide receivers. And Olave, although he's failed to go above 10 points in 3 of his last 4 matchups, I think this is a get-right game for him, and I think that we can probably see him find the end zone. So, yeah, I'm seeing Olave probably uncork for about 7-8 receptions, 90 yards, and a touchdown. I think that's where we can see him play this week, and I think he absolutely explodes and get back to what we saw him earlier this season, and hopefully Andy Dalton can just get the ball to Chris Olave. This isn't hard for the old Red Rocket. Just get the ball to Olave and call it a day. Get the ball to AK-47, get the ball to Olave, and just call it a day. That's all you got to do, Andy. Just get the ball to those 2 and let it go. My fantasy team will thank you.
I like it.
All righty. Any other thoughts here on the Pines and the Shines?
No, sir. I'm good.
All righty. Well, guys, if there's any other questions, any other comments, anything like that out there, let's make sure we throw them out there. We're going to start kind of winding this thing down and signing off here. So let's make sure we get any of those questions answered. And if you happen to miss the getting the questions answered here live on the air, you can always find us on the socials, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, at Good Old Boys FF. We'll be live again Friday, 11 p.m. Eastern on both Twitch, on the Twitter, and, of course, on the YouTube channel, youtube.com/@GoodOldBoysFF. Click the subscribe button while you're there checking it out. Kevin, any final thoughts out there for the viewers and listeners?
Keep grinding, guys. You've made it this far. You made it into the playoffs. Best of luck to all of you. And like Derek said, if you need anything, hit us up. We're happy to help.
Absolutely. Question coming in here, just waiting for it to pop through so I can pop it on the screen. But Gitz is asking Robinson or White.
I'm assuming this is Brian Robinson.
That's what I would assume there as well. So I'm assuming, Gitz, that your question is Brian Robinson or Rashad White.
I'm actually gonna go Brian Robinson this week. They've been running the ball so much in Washington. Like, it's just goes back to opportunity. While I think White can be efficient, ultimately Tom Brady's going to have enough of this crap and he's going to start throwing it around the yard because he knows it's put up or shut up time. The Commanders, on the other hand, they love these dirty muck it up games, and the longer they can keep it close and dirty, the better off they seem to be. And Robinson's how they get it done.
I think you're right. I think that's the move to go there, is the Brian Robinson over Rashad White on this one. I think you're right. I think the Tampa Bay is going to have to throw the ball more so to keep this game close than necessarily try and grind this thing out and pound it out. Whereas Washington, this Commanders and the Giants game is likely going to be a slow, just kind of grinded out game. And I think you're right. I think that's how it comes to play. So I've got Brian Robinson like 2 spots ahead of Rashad White this week as far as kind of how I'm ranking them.
And they just tied a couple weeks ago, right? These teams are pretty evenly matched. I don't expect either one to run away from the other one. And you could see the Tampa Bay Buccaneers get put into a negative game script again this week, much like they were last week against San Francisco, playing this Bengals offense.
Yeah. So consensus on the old Brian Robinson Jr. for us there. So again, guys, any other questions, hit us up real quick. We're going to start calling this thing a night here, and appreciate everybody tuning in and, asking the questions, participating. Love all the interaction. Love all the chat going on there. But again, you can find us on all those socials: Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok at Good Old Boys FF. Shoot us the questions that you got in between our times live. We'll be live again Friday night, 11 p.m. Eastern. And make sure you head over to youtube.com/@GoodOldBoysFF and click that subscribe button. Ring that bell, get the notifications, hit the like button while you're on there as well. But that's going to do it for us. He's Kevin. I'm Derek. Any final thoughts before I say the final words?
Toodaloo.
Toodaloo. I like it.